Well, my friend, we just finished wrapping up a very up and down 2004 for WWE in this retro, but now it's time. It's time to discuss one of my personal favorite years in the Ruthless Aggression era in 2005. I don't know about you, but I have so much nostalgia for this year in pro wrestling.
I do too, because not to jump the gun, we're going to be seeing the rise of two very big stars that are really going to be holding down the home front, probably for the next 4 or 5 years in John Cena and Batista. And
Hmm.
this show, especially for Batista, is really going to start showing them molding him. And then we'll be talking about Cena at the Royal Rumble and No Way Out, how they were really just grooming these guys to be the next top stars because as of now, Rock and Austin are gone. They are officially retired from the business. Triple H is still a huge main event part of the WWE. So is the Undertaker. You still have your veterans there, but
Angle.
there was no Hulk Hogan. There were no Macho Man Randy Savages. There were no Ultimate Warriors. So WWE finally found two guys that they wanted to strap the rocket to, so to speak. And this wasn't really the birthplace of it, but this is more of like planting the seeds. Because one thing I noticed from this show, WWE really had a good stronghold on long-term storytelling. And we're going to be
Hmm.
getting into that really big with the main event. The beginning of 2005 is really the launching point, but once we get to the middle of this year, that's when the memories and my favorite moments are really going to start pouring in. And I ordered this pay-per-view. We're talking about New Year's
Me
Revolution
too.
2005. Um, and I think about because back in the day we didn't have the WWE Network, we didn't have Peacock, and I tried to think about what were my reasonings for ordering these pay-per-views. And honestly, my mentality as a kid was always the same. If I wanted to see Triple H lose or not win the title, and seeing this Elimination Chamber match, I was convinced
Well,
Triple H was not going to walk out of the show with the World Heavyweight Championship. And
you'll be
as many of these shows I ordered, like Armageddon '02, Unforgiven '04, the Royal Rumble next month that we'll be talking about. I was very disappointed in these outcomes. Even as a kid, I was sick and tired of Triple H being champion.
the
But ladies and
magic
gentlemen,
the
the
magic
reign
of
of
the reign of terror. Yep, and this
yeah,
would not have happened. Tomas would not have been disappointed if all of you assholes did not cheer for Hulk Hogan at Backlash 2002 when he buried Triple H for the undisputed title. We brought
but
this on.
guys,
It's still going.
yeah, we're nearing the beginning of the end of the Reign of Terror, and this
Thank
is
God.
really planting the seeds for that. Because the end should have came with Randy Orton, but Randy Orton was not ready. He was not
Mm.
playing a good babyface, and he was in the doghouse. And Randy Orton himself has really gone on record to say how much of a piece of shit he was around this time. And it's going to come into a really big point when we get to WrestleMania. Something that honestly should have gotten Orton fired. But yeah, this is going to be the real beginning of Randy Orton in the doghouse for quite some time.
Oh man.
Just wait till we get to 2006, which I think is the worst year in his career.
Yeah. Freaking immature he was around this time in history. That Elimination Chamber match, I mean, we'll get to it, but we were just talking before we recorded, and this is a cursed show in a lot of ways, taking place on January 9th, 2005 from San Juan, Puerto Rico. If that sounds familiar, it's because we just talked about Backlash 2023. There was an 18-year gap between this show and Backlash a couple months ago that Puerto Rico was not getting any WWE shows. And it's a darn shame because this crowd loves them professional wrestling. And even when you go back and rewatch this pay per view, they were into every single thing on the show. And when you look at this card, it's a one match show in a lot of ways. And we'll be going through it. And this was unfortunately plagued by bad luck as well, especially as you get into this opening contest here.
Because this show shouldn't have been a one match show because there was a lot of
Oh,
decent to good stuff on the show. But as we'll get into, especially with these first three matches, not no sort of third match, but really the first two matches really just painted the third match in a really bad light. But yeah, it was really scary watching this show as an adult. But as a kid, a lot of this stuff went over my head because
me
as
too.
a 11-year-old kid, you're still your mind is still very planted in kayfabe. But there are some things I noticed in the show watching as an adult that I was like, oh shit. There was a lot of
Yeah.
oh shit moments, a lot of scary moments, and it really even spooked the commentators, as we'll get into with Jr. and Jerry Lawler.
Insanely scary moments as they give us medical updates throughout the show. an omen of things to come with one of the most dangerous stipulations main eventing this show in one of the most dangerous wrestling territories out there in Puerto Rico. So, we kick it off with the World Tag Team Championships on the line, Tomas. It is Eugene and William Regal defending. They're the champions because they just won the belts in Regal's homeland in one of the feel-good moments on Raw in 2004. They are defending against Christian and Tyson Tomko. So essentially what I'm saying is Christian is working a handicap match here because Tomko is useless. Like, he could work this whole match by himself. Like, the problem solver does nothing.
You look at the layout of this match, and it should be giving me a stroke when it comes to random tag teams, but William Regal and Eugene were probably one of the most wholesome, endearing tag teams, and putting the titles on them was absolutely the right call. Putting the hometown boy over in William Regal, and just his relationship with Eugene really had blossomed to this point, and you could see the teacher, the mentor, and the student mentality in this team. And I loved it so much. Like, Eugene was really on top of his game. The gimmick was still very hot. The crowd really loved him. And unfortunately, this is where Eugene would start losing a lot of momentum over no fault of his own. You say Tomko is useless, but I think this is the smartest thing Christian Cage has done with Tomko, considering why would you not want the big muscle man as your tag team partner just to get some gold around your waist? And one thing I'll say about this match right now is this is probably the best match in Tomko's career.
So far. Far. I mean,
I can't remember another good Tomko match. So,
yeah, that's the running joke, though, on this channel, is that Tomko is practically useless as the problem solver in his gimmick. So, couldn't beat Chris Jericho, couldn't get rid of the Stevie Richards problem at Unforgiven. So, I mean, if he really wanted to live up to his problem solver moniker, him and Christian would have walked away with the tag team titles. But lo and behold, that did not happen, even with the bad luck that was going on. One thing that I really noticed, like, from the early going is how hot this crowd was for this match. Like, right from the opening bell, this is a Puerto Rico crowd that loves their professional wrestling, like I said. Even though this match would be kind of filler-ish on other shows down the line, this crowd made it a whole lot more of a big deal than it would have been in the States. Like,
yeah, not only the crowd, I think these four guys actually, I don't want to say they had great chemistry, but they actually melded together pretty well. I think Eugene working over Christian with his favorite wrestlers' moves, you know, imitating Macho Man Randy Savage and Stone Cold Steve Austin and the Junkyard Dog. I think Christian and Eugene really played off of each other well. Regal, of course, is a master of the ring. I feel like William Regal was Gunter before Gunter. He really just knows how to command the match. And like I said, I think they made Tomko work in this match. I think Eugene, Nick Dinsmore, is a very smart man in the ring, and Regal is Regal. So when Tomko was in there, kind of doing the heat segments for Regal and Eugene, I think they made this guy work.
Yeah, he's trained some people too, as we'll talk about later on in this review. Eugene, like I said, you know, like you were talking about, he was emulating all his favorite wrestlers. I always loved when he would emulate the Junkyard Dog and he would do his headbutt and then he would do the piss taunt on them. Like the dog was taking a piss on the fire hydrant and Christian would just be so disgusted. It was just freaking entertaining, man. Regal, really great in this match as well. Oh, one thing we forgot to mention, Eugene was wearing a Hulk Hogan spoof t-shirt. His name was written in the Hulkamania font on a yellow t-shirt, which I thought was a neat little touch there.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, this match was going really well up until the closing minutes of the match, where I believe Eugene was getting a hot tag, and he manages to hit a flatliner on Christian, and you notice that Eugene starts grabbing at his knee. And
yeah, it was at the point where while Eugene was getting his heat in that hot tag, he hit a double drop kick onto Christian Cage and Tomko, and he fell really bad on his knee, and you could tell immediately something was wrong because I don't even think Christian was the legal man. I think he was just in there taking spots for Eugene, but Christian tried to get Eugene up. I think he tagged him. No, I'm sorry. Christian was not the legal man, but Christian was trying to get Eugene up, and Eugene would just not give him any give whatsoever. He would immediately fall down. So I think Christian, being the true professional he was, he realized it was time to go home. So
Mm-hmm.
Regal quickly got in there and he threw Christian out. Oh no, he threw Tomko out, and then Eugene got a really weak roll up onto Christian, ending the match.
Yep.
Um, and okay, I'm gonna save my thoughts for actually after we explain this part, but Eugene and Regal retained the tag team titles. I thought it was a really fun match up to this point. I thought it could have been a really
Oh yeah.
decent, good opener. I'm still gonna give it 2.5 stars because I was having a really good time with this match until this happened. Then, in hindsight, when you look at it, the first thing I thought was like, "Wow, that was a really lazy finish." But the medical team immediately rushes to the ring, and this is the very first and only time that you've ever seen Nick Dinsmore break character
Yep.
because he totally just shook off the Eugene gimmick and he's talking to the trainers and he's holding and pointing at his knee. And that's when you knew something was up, something was bad. And the
He was
first
like
thing I, yeah.
he was like properly communicating with them and giving them eye contact and all that, which isn't like the Eugene character at all. So, like, if you look at it in hindsight, I was 8 years old when this pay-per-view happened, and I was looking at it like, oh shoot, Eugene's hurt. I hope he's okay. That's all that was running through my mind. But I didn't fully grasp the gravity of the injury. Like, I didn't really see, oh, Eugene's breaking character. That's not, the thing that you know when you're 8 years old.
I didn't notice that until I was rewatching the show here. And like you said, he was properly communicating. While this was going on, I couldn't help but think if they knew Eugene was injured, which Christian Cage obviously would, you think they maybe would have called an audible and just put the tag team titles on Tomko and Christian, just considering, they were going to strip Eugene and Regal of the titles anyway, because this was a very serious knee injury. But then you look at it in hindsight, it's like, you know what? It was so on the spot and it happened so quickly. I think the safest thing just was to take the match home, go with the originally planned finish, and just go from there like they did. But, again, heat of the moment, you could have done a lot of things there. I don't think it would have been the worst thing in the world to just put the tag team titles on Christian and Tomko. And it probably maybe could have played into a later segment. But like I said, in the heat of the moment, you do what you got to do.
Yeah, and you got to do what you got to do to go with the planned finish with Eugene and Regal retaining. And I believe what happened after this is I think actually Tajiri subbed in for Eugene at this point, and they were playing off that old connection there.
He did, yes.
Okay, so
but,
Regal himself was not stripped. He just had to go find a new partner to hold the belts with.
Yeah, and like I said, we won't be talking about this for a while once we get into Eugene's injury, but this unfortunately is the end of Eugene's mega push because he would get injured, he would come back, he would make an appearance at WrestleMania that I will save for there because that is a huge segment. But once Eugene is 100% healed and he comes back, yeah, he would still be featured on Raw, but it was never the same.
No.
He would be on pay-per-view a few times. It was never the same. And then when we get into the later years, and I don't mind talking about this now because Eugene's not really on pay-per-view, he started portraying a couple of different gimmicks. Like he portrayed this. He looked like a toddler in a onesie trying to be a superhero, and that didn't play off
Wearing
well.
the jammies.
Yeah. And then he would get his head shaved by Mr. McMahon heading into WrestleMania 23. And then by the end of his run, they tried to turn Eugene heel, which I thought could have worked. It could have been like an evil doink situation.
No.
Because he was throwing temper tantrums. He was hitting referees. He was telling everyone that he's special and he deserves special treatment and he should get anything that he wants. And it could have went somewhere, but it really just fizzled out and it didn't end up panning out for anybody.
So as someone who actually has relatives that are on the spectrum, I am actually going to disagree with that statement, mainly because when you look at this whole situation and this portrayal of Eugene in the heel role later years, a lot of people might be rubbed the wrong way by that, and myself included, mainly because they are villainizing the special needs person. And it's like, that doesn't give you an excuse to be an asshole,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just saying maybe their justification for it is like they could have maybe going with an evil doink direction, you know what I mean? Because it coincidental, I was actually watching some heel doink promos before we were recording because I saw some pop on my feed. And when you look at that perception of it, there's two ways you can go with the clown. Either the clown is super friendly and kid friendly and everybody loves the clown, or people are scared of clowns. And you can go like the psychotic route, like the Pennywise route. And I think Matt Bourne portrayed that very well. So they could have been going in an evil doink direction, but someone on the spectrum and a clown are two entirely different things.
Exactly.
So Yeah, that gimmick did not go anywhere, and unfortunately, Eugene fizzled out, and he got released.
He
Not
did.
trying to jump the gun with Eugene. I'm just saying, after like mid 2006, Eugene isn't really on pay per view anymore, so we're not gonna
Nope.
get a lot more opportunities to talk about Eugene.
Yeah, and Nick Dinsmore was a diamond in the rough, I guess you can say.
He
But
was.
after this broken kneecap that he had at New Year's Revolution, like this was the end of his mega push, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah,
It really
he would
is.
have one kind of big feud with Kurt Angle at SummerSlam, but after that, it's over. And the Angle feud, it's nowhere near the Triple H feud from the
It's so
SummerSlam prior.
one-sided. It's so
It is.
one-sided when you get to the Angle stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah. So Eugene breaks his left kneecap basically. Show's not off to a great start. I gave this match 2.5 stars as well, mainly because it was going well up until the injury. But unfortunately, the injuries do not stop here, Tomas. And this next match was built up so incredibly well. And I'm sure this crowd was deflated once they saw what happened.
Yeah. You want to talk about my expectations as a kid?
Mm-hmm.
This is a classic feud that they always go back to, and this is probably the hottest, the most heat filled that this feud has been as long as these two have been feuding. It's Trish Stratus versus Lita for the WWE Women's Championship. Now, let's go back a little because we reviewed this match at Survivor Series, and they purposely went to a squash finish with a disqualification or a no contest because they wanted to continue to build this feud and
Mm-hmm.
get as much heat on these ladies as possible. It was the best women's feud in that era. Trish Stratus and Lita, you could not get better than that. You talk about trigger warning with Trish Stratus talking about Lita deserved to lose her baby, and they're playing into that whole thing, which is terrible, but at the same time, it got Trish Stratus like, mega heat with the crowd. And the whole story was building to Lita winning the women's championship. Now, before we get to the bad stuff, let's get into the good stuff because prior to this match, for the first time ever, Lita and Trish Stratus got to main event on Monday Night Raw for the women's championship. First time the ladies have ever main evented Monday Night Raw. And it is one of, honestly, top 5 women's matches of all time. These ladies literally killed themselves in this match and put on a fantastic match. And the irony in this match is considering what happens here in New Year's Revolution, Lita does one of the damnedest spots I've ever seen in my life. She goes for a suicide dive, but she lands on her fucking neck on the way down.
She folds herself in half, like the incorrect way. Like if you're sitting down like this, Lita kind of flipped that around. Like, she folded the other way in a way that
like an accordion.
Human anatomy should not be bending that way that Lita did. Let's just
did this happen in December or January?
That would be December.
So it was probably the best way you could have ended off the year with Lita winning the women's championship in front of a hot crowd in the main event of Monday Night Raw. So this was going to be, I feel like this was going to be the blow off to their feud. Finally give Lita a proper run with the women's championship. So also they're playing into the Trish Stratus got her nose broken and, so this match starts off, and honestly, before these ladies can even get out of the gate, Lita goes for kind of like a running, seated senton like Rey Mysterio does.
Like a Fed's press off the apron.
Yeah, but like with the suicide dive, Lita does this move totally wrong, and her knee just buckles on the way down on the concrete floor. They get back into the ring, and just like the tag team title match, it's eerie how mirrored this is. Trish Stratus is trying to get heat on Lita, and Lita's giving her no give. And I think this match, probably because what happened in the prior match, they tried to keep going, but Trish Stratus is, can't do anything. So they decide to go home, and Trish Stratus hits the chick kick and regains the women's championship. Now, before we get into this situation, let me tell you how pissed off as a kid I was to see this, because I was so happy when Lita won. I watched that main event. I watched Lita win the women's championship. I was so happy to see that evil Jezebel, as JR would say, get her come up and lose this women's
title.
Damn
Jezebel.
Yeah, Trish Stratus was the female Triple H, and I was sick of her with the women's championship. Well, I better fucking get used to that. And just to see Trish Stratus just waltz back into pay-per-view, and after not even a 4-minute match, regain the women's championship, just absolutely infuriated me as a kid. But looking at it as an adult now, it's still very frustrating that the match had to go this way, but they did what I said they did with the tag team title match. I don't know if this was the intended finish, but Lita was done.
There's no way.
Done. and they called an audible. Trish Stratus just had to win the women's championship back.
Well, there's only so much you could do with an opponent that tore her ACL on the way down to the floor, because that's what happened to Lita here. She would be on the shelf for, oh God, I mean, I can't even remember the next Lita match on the docket, because later on she would become a valet for somebody in a storyline that will really piss me off down the line on this retrospective. But
yeah, and I feel like even during her recovery time, she'd be showing up on Raw with the crutch just to show like she still wanted to be there, but she just couldn't wrestle. But, you know, it was a shame. But this is when the commentators start getting really scared while they're tending to Lita. JR is saying, like, this is the second match in a row we've had almost the same exact injury. This is before they knew it was an ACL tear. So they both just assumed Eugene and Lita busted their knees. And Jerry Lawler was just trying to play it off. Not play it off, but just like, you know, fill the time by saying, like, oh, these risky moves. They're jumping off the top rope. It's such a risk that these people take in these matches. And JR was, you know, having a conniption. He was just saying, there's something wrong tonight. There's something terribly wrong here in Puerto Rico. And Vince is probably having a fucking stroke backstage. You know, 2 of his wrestlers going down in the span of 2 matches.
Yeah, no wonder he waited. Well, it wasn't his decision to go back to Puerto Rico. It was Triple H's. No wonder he never went back again, because he probably felt the territory was cursed. But
and, you know, Vince was probably running backstage to everyone who was wrestling and said, do not jump off the fucking top rope. I am banning top rope spots for the rest of the show.
Well, I mean, I don't think any wrestlers got the memo there, because there were still a lot of really insane high spots on New Year's Revolution here.
But yeah, I don't think rating this match. It sucks. It wasn't even like the tag team title match where it was going good into the finish. This just sucked, and again, it was awful to see. Lita got her big payoff, and this was supposed to be the blow off, and then who knows, Lita could have held that title for a year, and they just, you know, considering what they do at WrestleMania, maybe they could have had the blow off there too, like in a stipulation match, like the first ever women's ladder match. That would have been really cool. But it's a WrestleMania. It just this sucked. This made me sad.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I don't think it's really fair to rate this match just based on how this match panned out and the bad luck that was given to Lita here. I don't necessarily agree with the ladder match stipulation that they could have had, because there is another ladder match on WrestleMania 21.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. They could have did something.
It's an idea.
At WrestleMania.
It's an idea. They could have had like a hardcore match or something.
Yeah, an idea that never was.
Yeah, but yeah, unfortunately for Lita, this is, I believe, her last in-ring match of 2005. So it'll be a bit before we talk about her like in further detail. And yeah, I don't want to get triggered right now, because 2005 is a good year. Okay, so next up, hopefully this next match isn't as cursed, Tomas. For the Intercontinental Championship, Shelton Benjamin is defending against Tough Enough Season 1 winner Maven. Now, as I mentioned at the Survivor Series Retro Pod, Maven, in his interview where Snitsky attacked him and beat the shit out of him, Maven was acting very heelish before then. Well, when Maven had control of Raw, after his team won the Survivor Series match, first week out, he challenges Triple H for the world title. He looks like a freaking chump, and he's pretty much had enough of these fans. And he turns up.
Well, of course, you're going to look like a chump when you're challenging for the world championship. You get help from 3 separate people, and you still can't win?
Yeah.
That's also not a very babyface thing to do. He made Jericho, Benoit, and Randy Orton help him out in that match, and he still couldn't get the job done. I remember watching that match as a kid and just saying, like, Jericho just hit a lion salt and he kicked out. Benoit just hit a flying headbutt and Triple H kicked out. Randy Orton hit him with the title and he kicked out. It's like Maven did absolutely nothing for himself in that match. And it could have been, you know, that could have been a launching point for Maven, but I'm glad you brought up the heel turn, because Maven turned heel in probably one of the most hilarious ways possible. Maven just one night snaps backstage. He's sitting in the back with Eugene and Regal, just minding his own business. And then all of a sudden he decides to start berating poor Eugene. And he says, like, why the hell does this guy have a title? I should have a title. Look at this guy. He can't even spell title, and he has one. And Eugene, with one of the best comebacks of all time, says, oh, yes, I can. Title. He fucking showed you, Maven.
He showed him. He showed him up, didn't he? Eugene is a lot smarter than Maven gives him credit for. But Maven, yeah, he turns heel, and here he is challenging Shelton Benjamin for the Intercontinental title, who has held this title since Taboo Tuesday, of course. And he's on a roll. He has gotten a lot of momentum, and this crowd absolutely loves him. The thing that I find really entertaining about this match is the way Maven was interacting with this Puerto Rico crowd, because they were giving him a lot of shit in this match. They were like, I couldn't exactly make out what they were chanting per se to Maven, but it was
So
Maven was
this,
very offended by it.
yeah, this match starts, and Maven and Benjamin spend a lot of time just circling each other. Maven's doing the classic heel spot where Benjamin goes towards him and he backs himself up in the ropes, tells the referee to stop it. And Maven is coming up with every single excuse to not actually start wrestling. So he exits the ring, grabs a microphone, and he tells the referee, "Don't you start counting. I got a lot to say. I got a lot to get off my chest." And this idiot referee listens, because Maven proceeds to cut a 5-minute promo on the
referee
crowd.
doesn't count. The referee doesn't count while he's sitting out there. He's like, he's
No,
supposed
if he wanted to give Maven, I don't know, 30 seconds to a minute max,
Oh my God.
that's fine. But he let this fucker cut like a 4 to 5 minute promo. And let me tell you something right now, in all seriousness. Maven should have gotten a major push as a heel, because he had this crowd in the palm of his fucking hands. He is being racist. He is being sexist. He is just classic heel heat. And
so
you kind of like get borderline when it comes to that kind of stuff. You could look at it as cheap heat, or you could looking at it as pushing it too far. But I think Maven just knocked it out of the park with his promo, telling
he was great.
everyone, like, "Can you speak English, please? I don't know what you're saying. I'm trying to do my thing, and you're just speaking Spanish." It was, classic heel stuff, and, people will say, like, "Oh, he shouldn't say it." I'm like, terrible people say those things, and he's trying to be a terrible person. So
Maven as a heel, I feel like came at the wrong place at the wrong time, because Maven certainly had the talent, as you have alluded to. These promos he was cutting were freaking scathing on these fans. But I feel like he would have fared a lot better as a heel if he were on SmackDown instead. Because there is a heel that we will talk about in the next match that was a lot more compelling on Raw than Maven was. And I hate to say that, but
I just feel like
Maven was in desperate need of a switch. He was in desperate need of a switch, but I feel like if they moved him over to SmackDown, he would have stood a much better chance as a heel.
I'm not saying Maven's heel promo should have just been centrally, revolved around like, racist comments and stuff like that. I'm just saying he knew how to get under the fans' skin. And I just think like it came so naturally to him. And again, it wasn't just racist comments. He kept telling Shelton Benjamin that, "Oh, you and Trish Stratus have something in common. You both don't have any balls." Like, totally stuff that would not fly by today. Yeah, just total, awful shit. So Maven, he's had enough of this crowd. Then after 5 minutes outside the ring, the referee still hasn't started counting, and he says, "You know what? I'm out of here. I don't want to wrestle anymore." So Benjamin goads him back into the ring, and the match finally gets underway.
Well, finally the ref starts counting. He finally starts counting.
So they wrestle for all of 30 seconds, and then Benjamin gets a quick roll up on Maven, and he beats Maven and retains the Intercontinental Championship. But then Maven gets on the mic and tells Benjamin, "That doesn't count. Get back here right now. Defend your championship against me." And Benjamin accepts. The match starts. He hits Maven with a T-bone suplex to retain again. 2 straight Intercontinental title defenses. I don't want to rate this match, but honestly, the segment, that's like a 4-star segment right there.
Yeah. This segment gets a solid thumbs up. It really does.
I would have given this a 5-star segment, honestly, but we just had 2 matches in a row plagued with injury, and this crowd was just, they were begging for wrestling. And then they get this. But here's the thing. The crowd had a good time booing Maven. I'm just saying,
they did.
If I was in the crowd, I would be getting a little antsy at this point, and I would actually want to see some wrestling.
Me too. And we get it with this next match, don't we? We get it.
Do absolutely. Wow.
Are you ready? Are you ready to rip off the Band-Aid?
So, injury, squash segment, commentator match. It is Jerry the King Lawler going one-on-one with one Muhammad Hassan.
Yes.
Are you ready to open up this can of snakes?
I sure am. I'm ready to open up this can of cobras, and I'm ready to freaking analyze this character because I honestly feel, Tomas, that Muhammad Hassan, with the heat he was getting, and obviously this is the character I was referring to that was really holding Maven's potential as a heel back. Because Muhammad Hassan as a character, good lord. So this
Picture
guy,
this.
yeah,
It's 2005. We are 4 years removed from one of the most devastating tragedies in the history of this country, the 9/11 tragedy. And we are living in a xenophobic America that hates all Arabs, Pakistanians, Iraqians, Muslims, anyone from the Middle East is just absolutely hated because of the actions of one man and one terrorist organization. So this is the mid 2000s. This is not the 80s. And Vince McMahon thinks he can capitalize on this xenophobia and his patriotism, which is so fucking weird, still thinking about it, by creating an Arab American character that would just be the punching bag. And that's the best way to describe him, just like an anti Semitic punching bag for everyone to easily hate and have an excuse for hating because, and again, trigger warning, I apologize if my verbiage offends anyone. You're brown, you're bad. Because you're from that side of the world, you are automatically responsible for what happened to this country. And it is just oh my God, it's a, looking back on, even as a kid, it was uncomfortable watching.
Yeah, the stuff he was saying in his promos, and his first promo, like, this is a guy in such a short time span, not to jump the gun, but he was working with legend after legend after legend after legend. And the guy who played Muhammad Hassan in an interview with Chris Van Vliet, which is really compelling, he basically talks, Mark Capani, yeah, an Italian wrestler, by the way. Not Arab American, he is Italian. They just gave him a spray tan and a Muslim headdress, and they called him Arab American. So that's just, I mean, he was on board with it. But this is a guy who was literally instructed to wear the headdress in public so as not to break kayfabe, and people were actually fucking scared of him and Daivari. They would actually take their kids as far away from Muhammad Hassan as possible. Like, Daivari was getting like death threats in the airports and everything. It was an uncomfortable time in wrestling.
Yeah, and just way to just promote intolerance. It's but to kind of like ease up and lighten up a bit. You brought up somebody, Shawn Daivari. This is his debut into the company. A man who honestly is a legend, and in my eyes, he has done so much for the business, and he is such a smart person in professional wrestling, whether it be WWE or Impact, and is currently a producer in WWE right now. He is an agent.
Daivari, I should know, Daivari was Hassan's sidekick at this point. Hassan would deliver his promos to the crowd in English. He was actually billed by Lillian Garcia from Detroit, Michigan, because he's Arab American, and Daivari would actually deliver all of Hassan's promos right after he was done, all in Arab. Daivari was actually Iranian American, so this actually worked for the character. But yeah, so he comes across Jerry the King Lawler, and there's a freaking, I can't believe this, there's a freaking debate in the ring on the Go Home episode of Raw, and JR in the freaking he tells Hassan, as long as America's concerned, you love it, or by God, you leave it. And Jerry the King Lawler is like, guess what? There's idiots and racists everywhere in the world, not just America. And I'm like, how are we supposed to cheer this?
It's so, oh my God, it's just so, it's so disgusting. And I'm so glad, I'm not trying to like say like, ooh, I'm better than everyone else, but I'm so glad as a kid, like, I didn't buy into all of that xenophobia. And even again, watching on screen as a kid, it was so uncomfortable because they just like, it's a one thing, obviously you are not bad because of your race. You are, your judgment should be based on what you do in life. If he was just a normal heel, just being a piece of shit, that's one thing. But they really just focus this whole thing on, you're Arab, that automatically makes you bad. He's not running around saying, I support what happened in 9/11 and I'm happy it happened. That'd be one thing. But then poor poor Capone would have got shot and he'd be dead right now.
Exactly.
But it was just so, oh my God. And like, this is just the tippy top of the iceberg that we're going to get into.
And it wasn't like when he was cutting his promos, because exactly, he never said that he was like a 9/11 sympathizer or anything like that. He was still an American. He was still an honest to goodness U.S. citizen. And this crowd was still booing him because, like, in these backstage vignettes, he would still be praising Allah and everything. But
yeah, and it's a derivative of a feud and an angle performed by one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. We are going to pay our respects to the late, great Iron Sheik. And when it came to getting heel heat, when it came to being so committed to the business and the character, there was nobody better than the Sheik. This guy, when you think about the original heels in the business, you think of Andre, you think of Roddy Piper, hell, you think of Randy Savage, and you think of the Iron Sheik. Him and Nikolai Volkov just getting underneath people's skin because they understood their role in the business. Sheik said, you don't want to like me because where I'm from? Well, then you know what? I'm going to give you a fucking reason to not like me. And he was just so easy to hate. And he was just the definition of you wanted to see him lose. He would come out and just say things like, I spit on the American flag and I don't like Americans. And you're going to listen to me and Volkov sing the Russian national anthem. And just like, if they were going to do it, even though, again, it's a product of its time, they gave you a reason to not like them. And I think nobody did it better than the Sheik. Without the Sheik, would not be characters like Hassan. And you know, there wouldn't be wrestlers like Jinder Mahal. He just really inspired an entire generation of Arabian, Iraqian, Pakistani, Middle Eastern wrestlers. And so speaking of Shawn Daivari, his little brother Arya, who was a wrestler for AEW, wrestler for WWE, gave a beautiful tribute saying, without the Sheik, there would be no Daivari.
Exactly. There's been so many foreign heel wrestlers in time. There's only one person who could have done it first. That was the Sheiky. Rest in peace, Bubba. And as always, fuck Hulk Hogan! Fuck Hulk Hogan! You know?
And bullshit to anyone saying that wasn't him running his Twitter account. Fuck that. Only the Sheik could come up with that shit he was saying. One time he said, fuck the Lilo and Stitch forever, and that has just been ingrained in my mind forever. What did that movie ever do to you, Sheik? Why fuck the Lilo and Stitch forever?
Because why not? Hulk Hogan's in it, Bubba.
Because never forget,
Hulk Hogan's not in any of those movies except for shitty ones. But
you fuck with the Sheik, he will break your back, and make you humble.
There you go. So
now go watch his fucking movie.
Good Lord. So Jerry Lawler and Muhammad Hassan go in there. And the weird thing about this match is that JR accompanies the King to ringside. And that means there's no commentary. It was so freaking awkward. Like, it's one thing if you're going to the show and you're not going to hear the commentators live over the sound system, obviously. Because, you know, that would be freaking loud and an earworm all night. But,
you know, it's funny because the very few handful of times this happened, my brother would always say the same thing. Like, he'd be like, there's no commentators. I go, yeah. And he goes, shh. Let's just enjoy this. Because you're so used to having the constant white noise that is the commentary in professional sports, in baseball, basketball, football, wrestling, hockey, all of it. You're always used to that background noise that is commentary. But when you don't get it, it's just like, just soak it in. Because this doesn't happen a lot.
Feels like you're actually there in the building, booing Muhammad Hassan.
Yeah. But the thing was, it was quiet. It was too quiet. Because you could hear a pin drop during this match.
Match, unfortunately, was nothing really all that special. I think this was absolutely the wrong opponent for Muhammad Hassan at this point, because Jerry Lawler was in his mid-50s at this point in time. And
Lawler could still work, but I don't want to say Hassan was green, but this match really did him no favors.
Yeah, he honestly didn't have the most, like, flashy set of offensive maneuvers, but it's not like he was shitting the bed every time he stepped into the ring. He was solid, but, you know,
also, fun fact, guess who trained Muhammad Hassan?
Nick Dinsmore. Eugene. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What they would do at WrestleMania,
Oh,
a full circle moment for those guys.
Oh, that must have been a treat for them. That must have been a huge treat. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Match really isn't anything super spectacular, unfortunately.
I mean,
Muhammad Hassan.
Yeah, Hassan gets his heat. Lawler does his classic offense. He does the flying fist, which I like that move. Am I the only one? I like that move.
The flying fist.
The way Lawler delivers it is just so graceful.
Oh yeah, more or less. But Hassan locks Jerry Lawler in the camel. Did he pin him with the camel? No, he pinned Jerry Lawler with a flatliner. Hassan's finisher was a camel clutch, just like the Iron Sheik was. I mean, I know, cliche to have the Arab American use the camel clutch as a finisher, but he uses the flatliner to pin Jerry Lawler. This match went 11 minutes. I feel like that was a little bit long.
Leading into the finish, JR and Shawn Daivari got into a little spat on the outside, and that led to this. Did they really need to do a distraction finish? Did Hassan really need a distraction to beat Jerry Lawler? Yes, no. Jerry Lawler's a legend, but and I don't want to jump the gun. And I love Lawler's career. I don't necessarily love Lawler as a person, but let's fast forward to next year's New Year's Revolution, when Jerry Lawler fights Gregory Helms. And I was watching that pay-per-view with my brother, and he looks over at me and he goes like, again, this is before we knew Lawler's like rich history, but my brother goes, "What has Lawler done?" And I go, "He's a legend." And he goes, "How?" And I
go, and you just got
before I knew that Jerry Lawler was the king of the territories. This is before I knew Jerry Lawler has won over 130 titles in his career.
Big time.
But it was just like, but you look at it in hindsight in 2005, it's like, is this the right opponent for Hassan? And does Hassan really need, a distraction?
To beat a commentator.
Because as good of a babyface Lawler is, he's an even better heel.
You don't say, especially with who Jerry Lawler is these days. But this match, this is a tough one to rate, man, because absolutely, 1 star for effort. The right person absolutely went over, so that's why I'm going to give it a couple extra bonus points there. But yeah, Muhammad Hassan, this is not the last time we're going to be talking about him, and I can't wait to analyze him even further as we get towards the end of this calendar year. Probably could have been one of the best bad guys in WWE history, but man,
this pay-per-view, the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, Backlash, Vengeance,
and the Great American Bash, because he was drafted to SmackDown.
We're only going to be talking about him for 6 more pay-per-views, and every time we do talk about him, we're going to have a lot to say. That's how much of an impact this guy had on his run.
Big time talent there. Oh, speaking of big time, ladies and gentlemen, you're not going to get much of a trigger warning here, because the rape of Lita angle has pretty much, taken a back seat for this feud, but it's still the same feud. Kane versus Gene Snitsky 1-on-1. Feels like we just saw them wrestle at Taboo Tuesday in a weapon of choice match. This is a hoss fight. Kane basically came back after Snitsky Pillmanized him in that weapon of choice match. Kane's basically out looking for revenge. And we have praised Snitsky so much on this podcast, and he, again, it feels like he was carrying Kane, who's a veteran at this point, to a really good match here. I don't want to say really good. It was decent. It was a decent match.
He was really holding his own in this match, and Snitsky and Kane were telling a really good story. It's kind of the same story they've been telling in the past couple of their matches. It's just that you don't expect Snitsky to win this match, but Snitsky has Kane's number in this match. It's like he has a reversal for every single one of Kane's moves, and he's taking 1 step ahead of him. I don't think this match is better than the Taboo Tuesday match.
I think it is
kind of on the same level. You're right. This one is a little better. And it's just so you really got to see the technical side of Snitsky, and Snitsky's still wrestling to this day, and he just seems like he has such a smart mind for this business.
Totally does have a smart mind for the business.
Yeah, nothing too crazy in this match other than Snitsky delivers some very stiff boots to Kane. And Kane can be stiff when he wants to, so they were probably just like, let's go out there and beat the fuck out of each other.
And that's exactly what they did. Fun piece of trivia before we continue, by the way, that I'm sure everybody would be happy to be aware of. the reason why Kane was written off of TV and the reason why he got Pillmanized is because he was going off to film See No Evil. Great movie. Great movie.
You like that movie?
Oh, yeah. It's a piece of shit.
Yeah,
So,
Vince McMahon was like, I want to make movies. Oh, that's great. What kind of movies do you want to make? I really like Die Hard. That's great, Vince, but Die Hard was already made. I don't care. I want to make Die Hard. Well, John Cena in it.
12 rounds.
He's got to breathe for aid. You know, another movie I like those movies with the giant killer like Halloween. That's great, Vince, but you can't make Halloween. It's already made. I want to make Halloween, damn it.
With Kane. My Michael Myers. Yeah.
That's all WWE Studios was. They would just rip off classic movies and try to like, look at my movie. Look at this guy that's trying to save his wife and he never dies. I'm like, this is just Die Hard. No,
Yeah.
It's not. This one has John Cena in it.
So there was a point where Snitsky in this match introduced a steel chair, which again, bonus points to Snitsky for introducing that callback from Taboo Tuesday. Kane makes his comeback, goes for the chokeslam, hits the chokeslam, and then he's not done with Snitsky yet because this is theoretically supposed to be the end of the feud. Kane nails Snitsky with a tombstone pile driver, and he pins Snitsky after, how long was this? 11 and a half minutes, going on 12. The match was decent. I'm gonna give it 2.5. Best match on the show up to this point.
Yeah, I'll give it 2 3/4. It was a nice hot fight, and I really enjoyed the work Kane and Snitsky were putting in here. This is almost the end of the feud, thank God. And unfortunately, this is almost the end of Snitsky's big push because for some reason they just don't do anything with him. We're not really going to be talking about him on pay-per-view as opposed to the next Taboo Tuesday where he kind of gets shoehorned into a match.
Big time.
Other than that, oh God, we want to talk about the foot fetish character?
Not yet. Not yet. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Again, 2005 is a good year. 2005 is a good year. I want to start this off on a good note here.
Let me just say this. Snitsky is a fucking team player, and he did not deserve the shit he got for the rest of his run.
Did not deserve brush your teeth chance.
Yeah. Snitsky is going to stick around for 3 more years.
He sure is. He's a true pro. In every way. So Kane and Snitsky would actually have one more match, I believe, on Raw the next week, and that one is their best match in their trilogy, that no-holds-barred match, where both of them jump off the stage and they pretty much wreak havoc all over the arena, beat the tar out of one another, absolute chaos. I loved that thing as a kid. And I loved even more that when they showed up in the Royal Rumble match, as we'll talk about, they were still heavily taped up. Snitsky had taped ribs, a taped arm. Kane had a taped arm as well. And again, both those guys I thought were true pros, and they developed some pretty decent chemistry working this program together. At least I thought so.
There were some diamonds in the rough in this era. You talk about your Snitskys, your Eugenes, your Muhammad Hassans, and it sucks that they really never did anything with these guys. I'm not saying they should have been world champion, but Intercontinental champion for sure.
They should have at least been in contention there, especially since Snitsky beat Kane in their first match together, clean as a whistle. So, okay, here we are, our main event of this show. How in the heck did we get here, Tomas?
Yeah, we're already at the main event, and that just goes to show how much of this show was plagued with bad luck. For the World Heavyweight Championship, it is the Elimination Chamber match. There is no champion. Bacon is the champion. No one has the championship currently. Triple H, Randy Orton, Batista, Chris Jericho, Chris Benoit, and Edge. Thank you. There's always that odd man. This feels like a continuation from Survivor Series, and that's funny because that Survivor Series is what led up to all of this. Like we talked about, Team Orton defeated Team Triple H to gain control of Raw for a month, and they all did what, honestly, as a kid, I expected them to do. Every single week, each member was challenging Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship.
It was so fun. Yeah. It was such a fun stretch of Raw TV. So Maven was first on the challenger list. Triple H made him look like a chump. Benoit gets it the next week, and he points.
Was the smartest.
Yeah.
Because Benoit said, this is going to be a steel cage match for the World Heavyweight Championship. But Triple H was even smarter. He stages a fight with Batista because somebody laid out Triple H backstage and he couldn't defend the title. And then Triple H is accusing Batista of doing it, and they look like they're going to get into it. And they find out it's just a whole ruse, so Triple H didn't have to defend his title against Benoit. Though Edge is really starting to feud with Benoit, and Benoit says, well, there's a cage out there. Let's go fucking do it. And Benoit and Edge have a killer cage match that night on Raw. Triple H and Batista the next week on Raw reveal that, haha, we're not really fighting. We just did that so I didn't have to defend my title. Randy Orton, who cannot challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship, that was a stipulation, says that Triple H is going to defend the title in a battle royal. No. Triple H wasn't even going to be in the battle. No, Triple H was going to be in the battle royal. I'm sorry.
He was.
There was going to be a battle royal for the World Heavyweight Championship. Triple H.
And I loved that so much because Triple H is like, oh, what are you going to do? Are you going to say, oh, I'm going to challenge you. I'm Randy Orton. You can't do that, though, because I beat you. And Orton's like, you're right. I can't fight you, but I'm going to put you up against the entire Raw locker room. And it was so clever.
Shuts that shit down because Vince comes out and fucking verbally buries Stevie Richards because Vince comes out at the beginning of the show and he says, look, I understand Randy Orton has the power and he wants to be a battle royal for the World Heavyweight Championship, but anyone can win a battle royal. Look at Stevie Richards. Stevie Richards could win a battle royal, and then Stevie Richards will be your new World Heavyweight Champion. I'm not going to let that happen, so I'm changing the rules. Now, the winner of this match will get a World Heavyweight Championship match against Triple H at the end of the night. I remember I looked at my brother and I said, yeah, can we just agree can we agree on that this is a better idea? My brother's like, yeah, because what if somebody we don't like wins the match? Jericho and Benoit would tie. Oh no, was it Jericho and Benoit?
I think it was Benoit and Edge.
Benoit and Edge would tie at the end of the night, and it would become a triple threat match. And in that triple threat match, we got one of the most creative finishes of all time that I don't ever want to see them replicate again because this was just so perfect. Randy Orton comes out to cost Triple H the World Heavyweight Championship by blasting him with the belt over the barricade. Benoit has the crippler crossface on Edge, and Edge is able to reverse it into a pinfall. And then right when the referee's hand hits 3, Edge taps out. So it is so... They both fight over.
They're both the champion.
One referee says that Benoit wins. They don't know what to do. So Eric Bischoff finally makes his return to Raw the next week, and he strips Triple H of the World Heavyweight Championship. He's not going to give it back. He's going to hold it up in contention in the Elimination Chamber. And every single person in this match has a valid reason for being in this match. Eric Bischoff reveals that Randy Orton is going to be in the match because Triple H is no longer the champion, so Orton can challenge for the championship. Everybody caught up now?
I think so. And to add an extra wrinkle to this, Eric Bischoff appoints Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee in this, which will be a key component of this match. So, here we are, Elimination Chamber match here with the World Heavyweight title on the line to determine an undisputed big gold belt holder. Tomas, this might just be me. I'm going to lay claim to this. I think this is my favorite Elimination Chamber match of all time. I really do.
This one was damn good. And one story element that we forgot to lean into that I meant to say earlier in the show, Edge does not trust Shawn Michaels. They've been feuding for a minute here, and Edge is just paranoid, and he is running to Bischoff saying, Michaels is going to screw me out of this match. So he comes up with a very weird plan. After Christian and Tomko fail to win the tag team titles, Edge approaches them backstage and says, you want to be world champion? Come with me. He wants Christian to replace him in the chamber match, and when Christian wins the world title, Edge gets a shot at him. And I'm just looking at that thinking, that is the most unfair thing I've ever seen in the history of forever. So Bischoff says, no, we've been advertising this match, which is bullshit. They've been last-minute changes all the time. That's not a fair reasoning. I think Bischoff should just say, Edge, that's not fair. Like, I'm not. Bischoff, in a rare babyface moment, says, no, I'm not pulling you out of this match. You're going to do the match. So Edge is entering this very paranoid because he is convinced Shawn Michaels is going to screw him out of the title, even though Shawn Michaels tells him backstage, I'm not going to screw you out of the title, but if anybody physically provokes me, I will fight back. So kind of watch your back.
And that's why I love this match so much. There are so many story layers to this thing. Edge's paranoia with Shawn Michaels, Batista's ascension to the top especially, Triple H and Randy Orton still having their bad blood, Triple H doesn't exactly trust Batista fully, and that will explode later on in this thing. But we start off.
Benoit's still trying to fight back to win back the World Heavyweight Championship that he lost back at SummerSlam.
Jericho trying to stay relevant.
Jericho being the valiant babyface. He was one of those, babyface frontliners that was always, ready to fight the heels. Another layer that you brought up, before the match starts, Triple H and Flair and Batista are rallying backstage, and Triple H says, you got my back, right? You're going to help me out. And Batista says, yeah, I'm Evolution for life, but if you get eliminated, it's fair game. So Batista already playing the mind tricks with Triple H. He's just like in Guardians of the Galaxy, Batista is more than a big oaf. He's not stupid. He knows what he's doing. And you can already tell Randy Orton tried to plant the seed in his head that Triple H is very manipulative. And as we talk about longer into the year, Batista's not stupid. He knows what's going on.
He's not stupid, and it's also weird to see that he was sitting at ringside the entire show because his movements are so incredibly slow. He's invisible to the human eye, Yeah. So Batista also earned the opportunity to enter this match last because he wanted to beat the clock sprint on Raw, I believe. So we started off, it's the two workhorses in there first. It's Benoit and Jericho, and anytime you put those two together, it was in-ring magic, technically speaking. They were really solid together. Triple H enters the match third, and he is absolutely vicious towards these two baby faces. He is whooping them all over the chamber. They're always, the fact that this is a metal grate floor on the chamber, again, the old school Elimination Chamber, like, that's what sells the brutality, I think, is the legitimate steel chains, which the new Elimination Chamber has. But the steel grates on the floor. The new Elimination Chamber is not catered to be, a dangerous environment, They're going to take all those spots. All due respect, but...
and I'm not saying like, oh, there's no blood, so it's not good. You look at modern-day Elimination Chamber matches, and it's the same old spots. Someone's going to go through the pod. Someone's going to get slammed on the outside. Someone's going to get slammed up against the wall. Yeah, it is cool to see them jump off the pods, but it's less of a spectacle now and more of an obligation.
Yeah, it's more of an obligation for sure. I should also note, since this is in Puerto Rico, it was interesting to hear the crowd counting down in Spanish. It was a nice little added touch there, and they were into this match and hot the whole way through. So there's a Benoit busted onto the steel floor outside the ring, and Benoit blades so much, probably more than he ever has in his entire career, rather. Good Lord, there was so much blood this match. Hard neck breakers. Edge comes in at number 4, and he just dominates everybody. Hits an execution on Triple H. Shoulder tackles Jericho into the cage.
Edge was the definition of I have a fucking chip on my shoulder, because ever since his heel turn, he is obsessed, and he has one goal and one goal only, and that's to win the world title.
One goal and one goal only. Benoit with a beautiful looking Northern Light suplex on Edge for a nice near fall, and Shawn's counts, I should note, absolutely consistent the entire match. Triple H hits a pedigree on Jericho, but he cannot pin Chris Jericho because he is bleeding from the bridge of the nose here. It's too hurt to capitalize at this point. Nobody's been eliminated. I love this.
So was this at the point, because I think this was before, Randy Orton gets in next. Yeah, and I don't know. I don't think Randy Orton did anything too memorable in this match, and not until near the end of it. I feel like him in this match was more about the storytelling than anything else. And also, even though considering Randy Orton was still pretty hot as a babyface, I don't think it would be after the Royal Rumble where it's just like, okay, this is a failed experiment. Even though Randy Orton wasn't doing the best, he still got a lot of cheers from the crowd. He still definitely had my support as a kid. And I don't even know why I was cheering for Randy Orton. I was just cheering for him because he was fighting Triple H. But in hindsight, I look at his babyface run and I'm just like, you were a cocky prick like 6 months ago. Why the fuck should I be cheering for you now?
Well, you should cheer me. You should cheer me because I'm not Triple H. I'm Randy Orton. I'm the third generation superstar. You should look for something different. Hey, nothing you can say about that Triple H. It's shit like that.
It was very bland.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
flavorless chicken.
Yeah, but he has a really, really nice sequence. He hits an RKO on Chris Jericho upon entering the ring. He's a house of fire on Triple H. He's knocking him outside. Really nice sequence between him and Benoit, circling back to their match at the previous SummerSlam. Benoit counters an RKO into a crippler crossface, like a vicious looking crippler crossface. It looks more like a chokehold. I shouldn't be saying that, but Edge basically wants a spear. Randy Orton, this is the important part. Edge and Orton come to blows here. I know you love that match at Vengeance, so I was very excited to see this. Randy Orton moves out of the way of the spear, and Edge knocks Shawn Michaels down, and then he basically goes to pin somebody after this, and he gets pissed off because he speared Shawn Michaels and he's still down, selling.
And remember, that's Shawn Michaels' fault. That's your fault for being in the way. So he is absolutely furious with Shawn Michaels. He picks him up. He's screaming at him, "Why aren't you counting? Why aren't you counting?" And he slaps Michaels. And if the spear wasn't enough, Michaels like, you know what? No, this is enough. He super kicks Edge, and Randy Orton gets the pin and eliminates Edge. Edge
It was
the
Jericho. Jericho pinned
gets
Edge,
rid of
yeah.
Edge. That's a little disappointing, but it just fits into the story perfectly. And Edge, the conspiracy theorist, was probably, "Oh, I knew it. I knew Michaels was going to screw me. I knew Michaels was going to screw me."
Yes.
This was a great segue into the
Absolutely fantastic sequence. It was really well done with the accidental spear going into the bickering that Edge did with Shawn and the sweet chin music and the lion salt by Jericho. It was all really well timed and really well executed. Stay tuned for the Royal Rumble podcast that Tomas and I are going to be doing, because this story between Shawn Michaels and Edge is far from over. But this is why
a diamond rough feud. It doesn't get talked about enough.
No, it's such a good feud, and it only happens for about, I mean, technically speaking, it started back at Taboo Tuesday, but in terms of in-ring matches, it would only have 1 or 2 matches together, and they were both really, really good.
It wouldn't be until 2007, I want to say, that Shawn Michaels and Edge have another like excellent street fight on Raw, but this is way after the fact that they're in this feud.
Yeah, way after the fact. And they would work together in tag matches when DX was feuding with Rated RKO in 2006 and going into 06.
Yeah, I was going to say that street fight was after Triple H got injured the second time, so we're way past that point.
Ironically enough, at New Year's Revolution, Benoit slaps on a crippler crossface, and Jericho locks in the walls of Jericho on Triple H at the same time.
Fucking love this spot. I love this spot. I love the mentality of, again, it's like, I'm going to call it the Thanos effect. You go back to Infinity War and all those superheroes just teaming up to just hold this monster down to finally take that gauntlet from him. And this would, I mean, obviously flip-flop, this match happened first, but I just love that mentality of just give this guy everything you got. We need to get rid of him now. And you put 2 of the most devastating submission holds on him. And I love this spot because while he's in there, the clock is counting down. It's the turn to enter. And obviously, God, what am I thinking?
Here, you feel, I'll help you. You feel the urgency of the situation here, right? Because as long as Triple H holds on and he doesn't tap out to 2 submission holds at the same time, then he can finally get some help from Batista. You know, because Batista's entering this match last, and he is an animal in that.
Murphy's. Oh my God, I'm sorry to burst out like that, but it was total Murphy's Law because
there you go.
That was done, and then they go to Batista, and his lock it's stuck. The pod lock is stuck, and they cannot get Batista out. And you see the look on Triple H's face, it's like he needs Batista's help, and then Batista explodes on everybody. Batista's clotheslines do not get enough credit because he is decapitating these fools. He takes down Jericho, he takes down Benoit, he takes down Orton, and he is just a powerhouse.
Do you want to know why this is my favorite Elimination Chamber match of all time? It's not necessarily the blood, not even necessarily the wrestling that was going on, because it was great wrestling all throughout here, and that certainly adds to it, and it's icing on the cake. It's not even necessarily the Shawn Michaels and Edge storyline that we just talked about, which is fantastic, but it's because you organically got Batista over in one match. And this is the match that turned Batista into a bona fide main eventer, because he goes in there, cleans house, goes in there, spine buster to Jericho, spine buster on Benoit, and this crowd absolutely loves a bit of Batista. Like this is how you build up an evolution implosion. This is how you do it. It's a slow burn. Like, it took them a couple tries, but they did it. They got Batista over. And like, I love this. Batista eliminates Benoit all by himself with the spine buster. And then he gives Jericho a vicious looking Batista bomb. Jericho's gushing blood as well. Pins Jericho also. So we're down to Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista with Ric Flair on the outside.
Also, Triple H is a bloody mess at this point. Triple H's selling does not get enough credit. And this was probably the spot that just planted the seeds for so much what they would do in the future. But Batista goes to Batista bomb Randy Orton, and Randy Orton hits him with this sick low blow.
Yeah.
And he hits Batista with the RKO to eliminate Batista. And you see Triple H in the corner, like he sees Batista getting pinned. He starts to get up, and then you just see him. It wasn't even a look on his face; just the body language said anything. He's like, "No, I'm not going to do that."
I'm not gonna help my partner.
No, not only is he selfish, not only is Triple H selfish, at the same time he knows this is my chance to get rid of Batista, because if he gets rid of Randy Orton, it's down to me and him, and I can't beat him.
Nope.
So this was his easy way out.
So you can certainly, like, long-term storytelling. Again, Triple H has beaten Randy Orton before, and as you'll see, as we progress into the summer of 2005 in this retro, Triple H cannot beat Batista. Absolutely cannot do it. Batista gives him a run for his money, makes Triple H look like a freaking jobber in the process by comparison. Batista was put over huge.
You want to hear how this goes so much in retrospect? Triple H would not beat Batista until Batista's final match in 2019. That's how much Batista had this guy's number.
Yeah. Batista dominated that guy. So, Triple H and Orton, it's down to those two. You've seen this match before at Unforgiven. It's pretty good and everything, but Batista comes back into the chamber, runs interference, and cleans Randy Orton's clock. He is still Evolution, ride or die. Triple H then hits Orton with a pedigree and wins his 10th World Heavyweight Championship. And I'm sure that really pissed off a young Tomas watching this show.
It did, because I was sick of Triple H winning the World Championship. And remember, I had that 11-year-old mindset of, I like Randy Orton. Randy Orton's the good guy, so I want Randy Orton to win. Looking at it now as almost a 30-year-old man, this was such a perfectly crafted story, and it was never, ever, ever going to be Randy Orton winning the championship. Randy Orton was a pawn in this story, because this was all about planting. This match was for one thing and one thing only. That was planting the seeds for Batista's face turn. And everything was there, from the backstage conversation about Triple H getting mad at Batista for winning the Beat the Clock challenge, to, Batista saving Triple H from getting eliminated, from Triple H not saving Batista from getting eliminated, to Batista still staying loyal after that fact, and, coming back to help Triple H win. This was all about Triple H wanted the championship, and he knew Batista was a threat.
Yeah.
He knew this animal was starting to become on his own and less of a henchman. You know what? You got me. This match gets 5 stars. This was excellent from beginning to finish. So much drama, so much layers. The spots were crazy.
So many great wrestling moments, too. And how did I forget? Chris Benoit hit Triple H with a diving headbutt off the top of one of the pods. Like, it really... Like, the first Elimination Chamber match is probably always going to be the most famous. The second one, where Goldberg was practically buried under the WWE umbrella, like, the first 2 Chamber matches, they were still working out the kinks. But this one right here, I think, is where the whole idea of the Elimination Chamber match has evolved, no pun intended, into its final form. And I really, really love it. I love all the stories. 5-star match for me, easily. This is a match of the year contender that saved this show.
Yeah, and the seeds would continue to get planted, because the next night on Monday Night Raw, Randy Orton shows Batista the footage of Triple H not saving him. And Triple H gives all the excuses in the world, like, there was blood in my eyes, I was about to faint, I couldn't see straight, my vision was blurry. And it's like, it's such perfect storytelling. I don't want to get too much into it, because we're going to be talking a lot about this going into the Royal Rumble, and even No Way Out, because Batista's going to play a part in that show. And again, the long-term storytelling in WWE at this time was Perfect.
Yeah, it leads to one of my all-time favorite face turns in wrestling history, just because of the story that it told. And I know Tomas is giddy to talk about it because he was a huge Batista fan in our young days. So, yeah, man, New Year's Revolution, a show plagued by bad luck, but it had a match of the year candidate at the very end to save it from being a disaster.
With that being said, you know what? I'm going to give this a 6.5 out of 10. Not a bad show, a fantastic main event. Just unfortunately, I call it like I see it, and I can't give the show mercy points because of the injuries. You kind of have to play with the hand that you're dealt, and
Yeah.
it was a one-match show, even though it shouldn't have been.
You were a lot more generous than I was. I went 5 out of 10 for this card, mainly because the injuries and everything like that, again, it's kind of out of their control.
You know what? You're right. Let's knock it down to a 6.
Okay.
I think that extra bump just for that main event.
Yeah, but at the same time, yeah, that main event, damn good. And a hot Puerto Rico crowd all throughout. Damn shame Vince McMahon never went back here until Triple H took over creative control and gave us a San Juan street fight on that card. But yeah, no, I mean, it was fun to look back on it, and it was awesome to see that Elimination Chamber match again. It had been a while since I sat through that. But up next, we have our Royal Rumble 2005 on the retrospective. One of the most infamous, chaotic, and fun Royal Rumbles, I think, in the Ruthless Aggression era. Wouldn't you say?
It's crazy. Yeah. And again, it's all this mindset of me being 11 years old and seeing this unfold. And then years later, finding out what actually happened. It's like, damn, this is one of those, like, could have fooled me. You know, that old trope in movies where something crazy is happening during a performance and the whole audience just thinks it's part of the show. This was that incarnate.
Oh yeah. It'll be fun when we tear through that show for sure. So hit that subscribe button if you're new. Hit that thumbs up. Look out for our review on Royal Rumble 05. We're going to be reviewing AEW Forbidden Door 2023, which also looks like a very stacked card indeed, with Bryan Danielson against Kazuchika Okada, Omega and Ospreay in a rematch, MJF and Tanahashi. It looks good. It looks like a good
Sonata
show.
versus Jungle Boy for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship.
Yep.
This year, it really feels like a crossover. Like, I'm looking forward to the show.
Yeah, me too. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun. So keep in touch, guys, and commence that back talk. Let us know what your thoughts on the show were. And yeah, stay tuned, guys.